All right, so we're going to take a deep dive into this Keke Palmer interview.
Okay.
From The Root.
Yeah.
And you sent this over to me, and clearly you're interested in what she has to say. And let me tell you, she does not hold back.
Right.
This is not just like promoting some new project. She is really diving deep into some pretty complex issues about race and family and the entertainment industry itself.
Yeah, and I think it's especially interesting how she kind of frames her experience as a child star. Particularly compared to like some of her white contemporaries.
Yeah.
She talks about being labeled as like the black girl on the network.
Yeah.
Almost as if there was only room for like one at a time.
Yeah, that quote really jumped out at me too. And she said, it was very much, that's the black show, or that's Keke Palmer, the black girl on the network.
Right.
It almost sounds like a backhanded compliment, Yeah. Like you're great for a black girl.
Exactly. And, that kind of thinking can be really limiting.
Yeah.
It can really limit opportunities. It feeds into this whole idea of typecasting, where actors are repeatedly offered these roles that fit a very narrow perception of their identity based on race, gender, or appearance.
So instead of being seen as an individual with, a whole wide range of potential,
right,
she's kind of boxed into this predefined category.
Precisely. And that's, something that actors of color have been fighting against for decades.
Right.
I mean, think about the roles that were typically offered to, like, black actors in the past.
Right.
They were often very stereotypical or limited in scope. It's really only been relatively recently that we've started to see more nuanced and diverse representation.
And it makes you wonder, did that affect the types of roles that she was offered?
Yeah.
Does it limit her in any way?
It's certainly possible.
Yeah.
And it speaks to, a broader issue in Hollywood where, opportunities aren't always equal.
Right.
It's not just about talent. It's about who gets access to those opportunities in the first place.
Okay, so we've got this external pressure of, maybe being typecast and maybe not getting the same opportunities.
Right.
But then she drops this bombshell about her family.
Yeah.
She talks about feeling this immense pressure as a child to provide financially for her family.
That's something that's often overlooked when we talk about child stars.
Yeah.
It's not just the fame and the pressure to perform.
Right.
It's the weight of these adult responsibilities that are placed on their young shoulders.
And I mean, that quote where she says, I hated my parents for a long time because I'm the one that we all came here for.
Right.
It's just incredibly raw and honest. You can just feel the emotional toll that it took on her.
And it really raises questions about the support systems that are in place for these young performers.
Yeah.
Are there enough safeguards to ensure that they're not being exploited?
Right.
Especially when family dynamics are involved.
It's a difficult balance, right? Because on the one hand, you have this incredible talent and drive. And on the other hand, you have a young person who's still developing and needs guidance and protection.
Absolutely. And it's not just about legal protections. It's about creating an environment where these young artists feel safe and supported, where they can pursue their passions without sacrificing their well-being.
And speaking of feeling safe and supported, this is where the Ryan Murphy incident comes in.
Right.
She mentions this again in this interview, but clarifies that she wasn't trying to attack him or anything.
She seems more focused on just kind of illustrating the complexities of these power dynamics in Hollywood.
Yeah.
You have someone like Ryan Murphy, who's incredibly successful and influential. And then you have, a younger actor who's still trying to navigate the industry.
Right. And even if you feel uncomfortable or mistreated, speaking up can feel incredibly risky, especially when your career is on the line.
Absolutely. And, she even says in the interview, look, I did what I had to do for me, and it caused me an issue with one of the most popular and successful men in the industry. And sometimes getting to your personal success may cost you to do the same thing.
Wow. That's a powerful statement.
Yeah.
It really underscores the tough choices that actors sometimes face.
And it really makes you think about what kind of systemic changes are needed.
Yeah.
To create a more equitable and safe environment for everyone in the industry, regardless of their age or status.
It's a big question, and I think Keke Palmer's story is forcing us to confront it head on.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, her story is almost like a microcosm of the industry itself.
Right.
Yeah. There's this constant tension between, talent and opportunity,
right,
ambition and vulnerability.
It really makes you think about the human cost of fame, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think we often see these celebrities through this lens of success and glamour.
Right.
But it's easy to forget that they're navigating the same complexities of life as everyone else.
Right.
Just under a much brighter spotlight.
Yeah. And sometimes that spotlight can amplify those challenges.
For sure.
And make it even harder to cope with personal struggles.
Yeah.
Which kind of leads us to, her recent relationship issues with Darius Jackson.
Yeah.
This is something that became very public.
Right.
And she touches on it briefly in the interview.
It's clearly a sensitive topic.
Yeah.
And she's understandably cautious about how much she reveals.
Right.
But what's interesting is that she kind of directly addresses the use of the term domestic violence.
Uh-huh.
Pushing back against the sensationalism that often surrounds it.
Yeah, she says there's a sensationalization that happens with that word. But there really are often no other words to describe such a toxic dynamic.
Right.
It seems like she's trying to reclaim the narrative and define her own experience.
I think that's incredibly important. Too often these types of situations are kind of reduced to sound bites and headlines.
Right.
And they strip away the nuances and the complexities.
And we have to remember that all of this is happening while she's juggling this demanding career.
Yeah.
Promoting new projects,
Right.
navigating the pressures of public scrutiny.
It's a lot for anyone to handle.
Yeah.
And, it speaks to her resilience and determination.
Right.
Despite all of these personal challenges, she's continuing to move forward.
Yeah.
Both creatively and professionally.
Right. And speaking of creative projects,
Yeah.
let's shift gears a little bit and talk about her upcoming film, One of Them Days.
Oh, okay.
This is where I think things get particularly intriguing.
Yeah. Tell me more.
Well, we've got this fascinating collaboration.
Yeah.
We've got Keke Palmer, who has already proven herself to be this versatile and talented actress.
Sure.
And then you've got SCA, this incredibly gifted musician and artist who is actually making her acting debut in this film.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah. And then we've got Issa Rae,
Right.
who has just become a powerhouse in Hollywood,
Yeah.
producing and starring in all of these critically acclaimed projects like Insecure.
Absolutely.
It's like a dream team of Black female creatives.
I love it.
I'm really curious to see what kind of story they're going to tell together.
Yeah, me too. And I think it's significant that they're choosing to collaborate at this particular moment in time.
Uh-huh.
I think there's this growing movement in Hollywood towards more diverse storytelling.
Yeah.
Both in front of and behind the camera.
And these three women are really at the forefront of that movement.
Absolutely.
They're not just talented.
Right.
They're using their platforms to elevate other voices and really challenge the status quo.
It's a reminder that representation really matters.
Yeah.
When people see themselves reflected on screen, it can have a really profound impact on their sense of belonging and possibility.
Absolutely. And it's not just about representation. It's about the quality of that representation.
Yeah.
These are three women who are creating these complex and nuanced and authentic characters that defy stereotypes.
Absolutely. They're not just telling stories. They're shaping the culture.
Exactly.
And I think that's incredibly powerful.
And it goes back to what we were discussing earlier about the limitations of typecasting.
Yeah.
These women are breaking free from those constraints, creating their own opportunities, and defining success on their own terms.
They're showing the industry that there's an audience for these stories.
Right.
An audience that is hungry for diverse perspectives and these authentic portrayals.
And I think their success is inspiring a whole new generation of creators to tell their own stories.
I think so too.
It's creating this ripple effect,
Uh-huh.
expanding the boundaries of what's possible in Hollywood.
It's a reminder that change doesn't happen overnight.
Right.
It takes time and effort and a willingness to challenge the system.
Mm-hmm. And it takes people like Keke Palmer and SCA and Issa Rae who are really using their voices and their talents to pave the way for others.
They're not just creating art, they're creating change.
Yeah, and that's what makes this whole conversation so compelling.
Right.
It's not just about Keke Palmer's individual journey. It's about this larger cultural shift that's happening right now.
Right. It's about recognizing the power of representation.
Yeah.
The importance of supporting diverse voices and the potential for change when those voices are amplified.
It's about acknowledging the challenges and celebrating the triumphs and recognizing that the journey is just as important as the destination.
Well said.
It feels like Keke Palmer is at this really fascinating crossroads in her career.
Yeah.
She's achieved so much already, but it feels like she's just getting started.
Right. And I think what's striking is her willingness to be so open about the less glamorous aspects of the journey.
Yeah.
She doesn't shy away from the challenges or the pressures. Moments of doubt.
Yeah, she even talks about how she initially felt apprehensive about doing this particular interview with The Root.
Right.
Worried about how it would be perceived, like a celebrity giving social commentary.
Which I think speaks to a larger issue that a lot of celebrities face.
Yeah.
There's this pressure to kind of stay in their lane, avoid being too political or too opinionated.
But she clearly kind of pushes past that hesitation.
Right.
And uses the platform to talk about things that are important to her,
Yeah.
even if they're uncomfortable or controversial.
And I think that's where her authenticity really shines through.
Yeah.
It's not about preaching or virtue signaling.
Right.
It's about sharing her lived experience
Uh-huh.
and using her voice to spark conversation.
Yeah, this interview really wasn't just like a promotional tour for her latest project.
Right.
It felt more like a glimpse into her evolution,
Yeah.
both personally and professionally.
And I think that's what makes her so relatable to so many people.
Yeah. Especially young women who are navigating similar challenges.
Right.
She's not afraid to be vulnerable. She's not afraid to admit that she doesn't have all the answers.
So, what does this all mean for you, our listener?
Okay.
Why should you care about Keke Palmer's story?
Well, I think it offers a valuable reminder
Right.
that success doesn't always follow a straight path.
Uh-huh.
There will be bumps along the way,
Right.
moments of uncertainty, and difficult choices to make.
But it's about how we navigate those challenges, right?
Exactly.
How we learn and grow from them that ultimately shapes who we become.
Keke Palmer's story encourages us to embrace the complexities,
Yeah.
to challenge the status quo,
Uh-huh.
and to use our voices to advocate for a more just and equitable world.
It's a reminder that we all have the power to create change,
Yes.
both in our own lives and in the world around us.
And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is to simply share your story
Yeah.
and connect with others who are going through similar experiences. If you haven't already, I highly recommend checking out the full interview in The Root.
Yeah.
It's a really thought-provoking read, and I'm sure it will spark some interesting conversations.
Absolutely.
And of course, keep an eye out for One of Them Days.
Yes.
With this trio of talent, it's bound to be something special.
I can't wait.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
It was my pleasure.
Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep exploring.